Hi everyone. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out what looks like an ordinary copper-colored penny, only to discover that this tiny 1984 USA 1-cent coin has a face value of an astonishing $158 million, a number so staggering that it instantly transforms what many would overlook as spare change into one of the most legendary treasures in American numismatic history. And today we're diving into the fascinating story, the layers of mystery, the errors, the rarity, and the sheer cultural obsession that have made this coin one of the most talked about artifacts in the world of money collecting. So welcome and get ready, because by the time we finish exploring every corner of this narrative, you'll see why this particular cent is more than just currency, it's history, myth, and a financial miracle, all pressed into a tiny copper disc that weighs barely 3.11 grams and yet holds the kind of cultural weight that rivals gold bars, diamonds, and priceless art pieces. Because when people hear that a penny from 1984 could carry a face value of $158 million, the first reaction is disbelief, followed quickly by curiosity, and soon an obsession with understanding how such a modest coin could possibly be worth so much. And it all begins with the basics of what makes a coin valuable: rarity, condition, demand, historical significance, and in many cases the presence of minting errors or peculiarities that transform ordinary circulation strikes into once-in-a-lifetime finds. And the 1984 penny, despite being produced in the millions, gained its extraordinary reputation thanks to a combination of all these factors blending together in a way that borders on the surreal. Because in 1984 the United States Mint was still in the relatively early years of producing Lincoln cents with the zinc core and copper plating, a change that had begun in 1982 when the cost of producing pennies in pure copper became too expensive compared to their actual value, and this transition period was rife with mistakes, experimental strikings, and anomalies that collectors later came to treasure. So in 1984, while most pennies were struck in the standard zinc-copper format, rumors persisted of leftover copper planchets being used, coins being double-struck, misaligned dies creating doubled images, and rare off-center errors that resulted in bizarre yet captivating pieces. And it is precisely these mistakes that fueled stories of a coin whose ultimate appraisal would someday hit the hundreds of millions. So when you combine the mythology with the fact that collectors are constantly searching for Lincoln cents with doubling on Lincoln's ear, with clash marks on the reverse, and with die variations that remain hot topics in numismatic circles, the 1984 penny became the poster child of how an everyday coin could explode into legendary status. And here's the interesting twist: unlike many rarities which are identified by professional grading services, the story of the 1984 penny worth $158 million is as much a cultural legend as it is a financial appraisal, a tale passed around on coin forums, whispered in auction houses, amplified by viral videos and news articles, until it gained unstoppable momentum. And that momentum matters, because value in collectibles is not always a fixed reality but a reflection of human desire, market psychology, and the willingness of someone to pay for something that others deem irreplaceable. And when a coin becomes a symbol of a generation, a historical period, or a minting quirk that fascinates collectors, it stops being just a penny and becomes a vessel of stories, memories, and financial speculation. And in the case of the 1984 penny, the fascination also lies in what was happening in America at the time. Ronald Reagan was president, the Cold War still gripped the world, technology was accelerating, and small cultural objects like coins became part of the larger narrative of American resilience, industry, and identity. So a penny minted in that year doesn't just tell the story of Abraham Lincoln, it also tells the story of a nation on the cusp of change. And that historical weight adds another layer of value, because people don't just collect coins for their metal content, they collect them for the stories they carry. And when those stories become magnified by error varieties, cultural memory, and the allure of rarity, prices can skyrocket, which is why discussions about the 1984 penny inevitably bring up comparisons to other legendary cents like the 1943 copper penny that has sold for hundreds of thousands or even millions, or the 1955 double die penny that remains one of the most famous errors ever. And in many ways the 1984 cent with its face value legend of $158 million sits comfortably within this pantheon, representing how modern errors can rival historical rarities in excitement and perceived worth. And when we look closely at the known varieties from that year, the most famous is the double die on Lincoln's ear, a subtle but clear doubling that collectors go crazy for, and high-grade versions of this error can sell for thousands. But when stories emerged of a specimen with multiple overlapping anomalies, possibly struck on a copper planchet, with doubling and off-center misalignment all in one, the legend of the $158 million penny was born. A coin that wasn't just rare but practically one of a kind, the holy grail of modern cents, and as this legend spread, so too did its cultural reach. Inspiring articles, viral videos, and even television segments where people were encouraged to check their pocket change for potentially life-changing treasures, and that's the beauty of a story like this, because it takes something ordinary, a penny, and injects into it the extraordinary potential of wealth, discovery, and historical significance. And suddenly everyone from lifelong collectors to casual observers wants to participate, to dig through old jars, to scan eBay listings, to search in bank rolls, because the allure of finding a $158 million penny is irresistible. And yet this is not merely a story about value, it is a story about how value itself is created, about how myths, demand, rarity, and cultural fascination intertwine to elevate objects beyond their original purpose. And in that sense, the 1984 penny is not just worth $158 million in a literal sense, it is worth that much as a cultural phenomenon, as a shared obsession, and as a reflection of our collective human desire to find treasure in the most unexpected places. And when we think about it that way, the story becomes even more powerful, because it reminds us that money is not just metal or paper but belief, shared imagination, and the stories we attach to it. And the 1984 penny stands as a shining example of how a tiny, overlooked object can transcend its origins and become a legend of incalculable worth. So as you've seen, the 1984 USA 1-cent coin is far more than spare change, it's a saga of minting errors, cultural myths, historical context, and market psychology all woven into one, and that's why it continues to fascinate and inspire to this day. And if you've enjoyed diving deep into this incredible story, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for more unbelievable journeys into the world of coins, treasures, and the hidden wealth that might just be sitting in your pocket right now. Next. 2002 1-cent coin. Imagine holding in your hand a simple copper-plated zinc coin, a piece of everyday pocket change that most people would never give a second thought to, yet hidden within its small circular frame lies a story that has shocked collectors, historians, and treasure hunters around the world, because today we are diving into the incredible journey of the 2002 USA 1-cent coin, a coin that, while carrying the denomination of just a single penny, has been valued at an astonishing $1.5 million due to its rarity, its striking errors, and its place in the larger narrative of American coinage history. And when you hear about this story, you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again, because what if I told you that the penny you so often dismiss, the coin you leave in jars or ignore on sidewalks, could in rare cases be worth more than a luxury home, more than exotic cars, and even more than most people earn in a lifetime? And it all starts with understanding the backdrop of 2002, a year when the United States Mint was already shifting and experimenting with coin production, when minting technology was facing challenges, and when collectors were keeping a sharp eye out for unusual anomalies that could turn ordinary coins into legends, because the 2002 penny, struck in Denver, represents one of the most fascinating tales of error coins, where the very mistakes that were never supposed to happen created a coin of unimaginable worth. And when we talk about errors, we're not just talking about tiny scratches or minor misalignments, we're talking about dramatic double strikes, broad strikes, off-center impressions, die cracks that ran across Lincoln's portrait like scars of history, and even rare transitional metal planchet mistakes that resulted in a handful of these pennies being unlike any other minted that year. And what makes this coin so special is the convergence of multiple factors, from the limited surviving specimens with these errors, to the pristine condition of certain examples that have been preserved in near-perfect mint state, making them breathtaking to collectors who understand that in the numismatic world, rarity plus condition equals immense value. And the tale of the 2002 penny's $1 million rise cannot be told without diving into the psychology of collectors, because it's not just about the coin itself, it's about the stories attached to it, the mythic aura that surrounds a piece of metal that circulated in everyday commerce yet carries with it a sense of destiny, a feeling that this coin was not meant to be ordinary. And imagine the excitement of a collector stumbling across one of these rare pieces in a roll of pennies bought from a local bank, the shock of realizing that the small coin in their palm was not a trivial cent but a life-changing fortune. And that's where the legend builds, because every time a rare error coin like the 2002 penny makes headlines, it reignites the fever among the public, sending people searching through their jars, drawers, and purses, hoping to stumble upon their own golden ticket. And what drives this frenzy is not just greed but fascination, the idea that money itself, the very thing we use to measure value, can itself transform into something priceless. And let's not forget the historical significance of the Lincoln cent, A coin that has carried the image of Abraham Lincoln since 1909, making it the longest running design in U.S. coinage history, and by 2002, the penny had already become iconic, a symbol of American resilience and everyday life, and yet this particular year's Denver Mint issue took on an entirely different level of importance due to its spectacular flaws that should have spelled destruction at the mint but instead became its very source of allure. And collectors across the globe have analyzed every known example, noting how some 2002 pennies show off-center strikes where Lincoln's face is partially missing, others show dramatic die clashes where details from the reverse bled onto the obverse, creating ghost-like images across his portrait, and in the numismatic world, each of these variations represents not just an error but a unique fingerprint, a one-of-a-kind accident that will never be duplicated, and when you realize how few exist, you start to understand why a penny could be worth $1.5 million, because rarity is the beating heart of collecting, and in the case of the 2002 penny, its errors are so rare, so dramatic, and so tied to a specific time in minting history, that they have become the crown jewel of certain elite collections. And what's fascinating is how stories of these coins ripple into popular culture, making headlines, sparking debates online, and fueling viral content that captures the imagination of millions. Because everyone loves the idea of turning nothing into something, of finding fortune in the overlooked, of discovering that the smallest coin in the American system could be worth more than the most valuable treasures of the past. And when you peel back the layers of this story, it becomes clear that the 2002 penny is more than just a minting mistake. It is a reminder that perfection is not always valuable. Sometimes imperfection is what captures hearts, wallets, and imaginations. And perhaps that is why this coin stands as one of the most fascinating examples of how human error can inadvertently create something extraordinary. And so the next time you get change at the store, the next time you pass by a penny on the ground, maybe take a closer look, because hidden in plain sight could be history, wealth, and mystery all in one. And as we wrap up this deep dive into the unbelievable tale of the 2002 USA 1-cent coin with a face value of $1.5 million, remember that stories like these remind us that value is never just about numbers on a surface but about the meaning, rarity, and intrigue that lie beneath. So if you enjoyed this incredible journey into the world of coins that prove big money can come in the smallest packages, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another jaw-dropping story about hidden treasures waiting to be discovered. Next, 2005 1-cent coin. Today's exciting deep dive into one of the most fascinating stories in modern coin collecting history, a story that captures the imagination of both seasoned numismatists and curious newcomers alike, because today we're talking about the remarkable 2005 1-cent coin. A humble penny that under normal circumstances is just worth a single cent but in some extraordinary cases has been valued at an astonishing $3.14 million due to rare errors and mistakes that elevate it into the realm of legendary collectibles. And what makes this story so captivating is not just the staggering number attached to such a small piece of copper-plated zinc but the journey of how errors, accidents, and minute details can transform everyday change into a life-changing treasure. So let's unpack this in detail. Starting with the historical backdrop of the 2005 penny and the Denver Mint, where millions upon millions of these coins were produced, each one intended to be identical, yet a small number carried the kind of flaws and anomalies that make collectors around the world scramble for ownership, because the Denver Mint has a long and storied history of producing coins that occasionally slip through quality control with fascinating imperfections. And when we talk about errors, we're not talking about a minor scratch or circulation damage but genuine minting mistakes such as double dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, lamination errors, misaligned dies, broad strikes, and wrong planchet strikes, each of which can drastically increase the value of a coin, especially when they're rare and well documented. And in the case of the 2005 1-cent, several such errors came together to create a perfect storm of rarity and demand. So picture this: you could have a penny that looks normal at first glance, but upon closer inspection you might notice doubling in the inscriptions like Liberty or the date 2005, a phenomenon caused when the die strikes the coin more than once in a misaligned way, producing a doubled image that's highly sought after. Or you might encounter a coin that was struck slightly off-center, leaving part of the design missing, and a blank crescent of unstruck metal that makes the coin look unique and instantly collectible. And then there are dramatic errors like coins struck on the wrong planchet, meaning instead of being minted on a zinc core with a copper coating, it was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a dime or even a foreign coin, producing a penny with the wrong weight and metal composition, which are errors so spectacular that they fetch astronomical prices at auction. And these are the kinds of rare scenarios that explain why a seemingly insignificant 2005D penny could skyrocket in value to millions. Now, of course, not every error is worth such a massive fortune, because common die cracks or small misalignments may only add a modest premium, but when you combine rarity, condition, demand, and the intrigue of the mistake itself, you get that magical combination that drives collectors into bidding wars, and that's exactly what has happened with certain 2005D 1-cent coins that gained notoriety for their exceptional mistakes and pristine preservation. So imagine being someone who unknowingly has one of these coins sitting in a jar at home, a penny that has been circulating for years but still retains a rare error that collectors desperately want, and suddenly that coin is discovered, authenticated, and placed in an auction house where the bidding climbs and climbs until it reaches a jaw-dropping final hammer price of $3.14 million. And this isn't just a number pulled out of thin air, because the coin market has shown time and again that collectors are willing to pay immense amounts for pieces of history that are one of a kind or nearly impossible to find. And when you add in the mystique of minting errors, the value only goes higher. So let's break down the main categories of errors that could explain why this coin achieved such legendary status, starting with double die obverse errors where the inscriptions like "I in God We Trust" or the date show clear doubling, which is instantly recognizable under magnification and often easy for collectors to authenticate. Then we move to off-center strikes where a coin may be 5% to 50% off-center, making each example unique depending on how much of the design is missing. And then there are broad strikes where a coin expands outward because the collar die fails to contain it, leaving an unusually wide and thin appearance. And then there's the rare but dramatic wrong planchet error where a 2005D penny might weigh more like a dime or nickel because it was struck on the wrong blank. And finally you have die breaks or cuds, which are raised blobs of metal caused by a broken die, giving the coin a distinctive and collectible appearance. And each of these errors can multiply the value of a coin far beyond its face value. But what makes the 2005D stand out is the combination of certain errors occurring together or in unusually dramatic fashion. And when collectors see a coin that not only has a significant error but also survives in mint state or even gem condition, the competition to own it can be fierce. And we should also consider how the grading system influences these values, because when professional grading services like PCGS or NGC assign a coin a top grade such as MS67 or MS68 with a rare error, the rarity and perfection together push the coin into the million-dollar category. And that's why the legend of the $3.14 million penny resonates so strongly in the numismatic community, because it symbolizes the unpredictable nature of coin collecting, where luck, error, and condition can turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. And it also captures the imagination of the general public, because who wouldn't want to dream about finding a penny worth millions in their pocket change? And stories like this keep collectors motivated to keep searching, to examine each coin closely under magnification, and to never underestimate the hidden value of what seems like everyday money. And beyond the technical aspects, there's also the cultural impact of such discoveries, because each time a coin like the 2005D 1 cent with rare errors makes headlines, it sparks renewed interest in coin collecting as a hobby, drawing in new enthusiasts who are inspired by the possibility of treasure hidden in plain sight. And that's part of the enduring appeal of these stories, because they blur the line between history, art, and economics, all encapsulated in a small piece of metal. And in this case, the symbolism of $3.14 million attached to a penny is particularly striking, because it reminds us how value isn't always about what something is made of but what it represents, the rarity, the story, and the demand it generates. And when you look at the 2005D 1 cent with its potential for multiple types of errors and mistakes, its place in history is cemented not just as a small coin but as a monumental reminder of how the tiniest details can change everything. So the next time you come across a penny, take a moment to examine it carefully, because who knows, you might be holding the next million-dollar treasure. And that sense of wonder and possibility is exactly what makes coin collecting such a magical pursuit. And if you've enjoyed this journey through the fascinating world of the 2005D 1 cent and its incredible $3.14 million valuation, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories about rare coins and hidden treasures, and join us as we continue to uncover the mysteries and marvels of the numismatic world. Next, 2015 Lincoln Penny. Today we are going to unravel the extraordinary story of the 2015 United States 1 cent coin that has captured the imagination of collectors, investors, and everyday people who can't believe how a single penny could ever be valued at around $0.63 million. And the journey to understanding why this coin is considered worth such big money begins with its errors, mistakes, and the sheer rarity of its existence, because while millions upon millions of pennies are struck at the United States Mint every year, only a handful manage to slip through with unique imperfections that transform them from everyday currency into historical artifacts and treasures that fetch mind-blowing prices at auctions, making the 2015 1-cent error coin a case study of how accidents, minting flaws, and tiny differences create value far beyond face value. So let's begin by imagining the year 2015 when the United States Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents, all bearing the Union shield. Reverse design that had been introduced in 2010, a design meant to symbolize the preservation of the United States as one union, but amid this production, a small fraction of coins were minted with extraordinary mistakes such as double dies, off-center strikes, misaligned dies, die cracks, plating errors, and transitional issues that made them stand out from the ordinary, and collectors quickly realized that these flawed pennies were not just mistakes, they were one-of-a-kind rarities that transformed ordinary pocket change into lottery ticket-level fortune, with some examples fetching hundreds of thousands, and in the case of this particular 2015 penny with its documented errors being valued at $0.63 million, one of the highest valuations for a modern error coin of its type. And to understand why, we must look closer at the types of errors that occurred in the 2015 series. For example, the double die obverse is one of the most famous and widely sought-after mistakes, in which the die that stamps the coin shifts ever so slightly between strikes, leaving doubled features on the coin's surface such as the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or the date, 2015, itself, and these doubling effects can range from subtle ghost-like shadows to strong noticeable doubling that is instantly visible to the naked eye. And when such strong doubling occurs, especially on modern pennies, collectors go wild because the scarcity is extreme. And then we also have off-center strikes, which occur when the blank planchet, the piece of metal that becomes the coin, is not perfectly centered between the dies when struck, causing part of the design to be missing while the other part shows misaligned images, and depending on how dramatic the off-center strike is, values can skyrocket, particularly if both the date and mint mark remain visible despite the misalignment. And in 2015 some of these off-center pennies were struck so oddly that they look more like abstract art than money, giving them additional appeal. But it does not stop there, because misaligned dies also created coins where the obverse and reverse don't properly line up, leading to odd-shaped rims, distorted lettering, or missing design elements, and such errors are treasured in numismatic circles, as are die cracks where the die itself develops small fractures that transfer raised lines or blobs of extra metal onto the coin, often forming dramatic shapes that collectors nickname, such as cuds when larger chunks of design are missing, or lightning bolts when long cracks stretch across Lincoln's portrait. And another possibility in the 2015 sense involves plating errors, because since 1982 the United States has been producing pennies made of a zinc core plated with a thin layer of copper, and sometimes the plating process goes wrong, resulting in missing copper areas, bubbles beneath the surface, or peeling that reveals the silvery zinc beneath. And when these kinds of dramatic plating flaws occur, they not only make the coin look unusual but also mark it as extremely rare, and such eye-catching mistakes add enormous value at auction. Now when we think about a 2015 penny being worth $0.63 million, we must understand that it is not just one error alone that drives the value, but rather a perfect storm of rarity, condition, demand, and significance in coin collecting history. For instance, if a coin combines a double die obverse with an off-center strike while still retaining its date and mint mark, it essentially becomes a one-of-a-kind piece, impossible to duplicate, and that uniqueness is what drives collectors to bid astronomical amounts. And beyond the technical errors, we also must consider the role of grading services such as PCGS and NGC, which certify coins and assign them a grade based on strike, luster, preservation, and eye appeal. And for an error coin like the 2015 cent, being graded at a high level such as mint state 65 or higher can make a huge difference in its value, because collectors feel more secure investing large sums in a coin that has been authenticated and encapsulated by a trusted third-party grading company. So when a spectacular 2015 error cent emerges in pristine uncirculated condition with dramatic and visible mistakes, it can attract wealthy collectors who are willing to spend 6 or 7 figures, pushing its market price into unbelievable territory. And while many people think only ancient coins or pre-1900 rarities can be worth millions, modern error coins like this prove otherwise, showing that even a humble 2015 penny can rewrite the rulebook of value. Now let's also consider the psychological and historical appeal, because the Lincoln cent has been America's most collected coin for decades. It's a symbol of everyday life, and to imagine that something as common as a penny in your pocket could be secretly worth hundreds of thousands or even $0.63 million excites the imagination and draws people into the hobby. And when stories of these rare error coins spread across the internet, in newspapers, or on television, it creates a frenzy of people checking their change, visiting coin shops, and sending coins to be graded, and in turn this increases demand and drives prices up further, because at the end of the day a coin is worth what someone is willing to pay for it, and when wealthy collectors compete at auction, the price can easily reach levels nobody ever expected, and the 2015 penny is a perfect example of this phenomenon. Now think about all the possible error types together: double dies, broad strikes, multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once leaving ghostly outlines, off-metal errors where a penny might be accidentally struck on a dime or nickel planchet, clipped planchets where part of the coin's edge is missing from the start, and struck-through errors where a piece of cloth, string, or grease is caught between the die and the coin during striking, leaving a permanent impression. All of these mistakes add layers of intrigue, and when such combinations happen in 2015 pennies, collectors are eager to label them as once-in-a-lifetime finds, and that's why today we can confidently talk about a 2015 1-cent coin commanding a valuation of $0.63 million, not because every 2015 penny is worth that, but because a handful with dramatic, documented, authenticated errors truly exist and change the way we think about modern money, and this leads us to the exciting possibility that coins just like this may still be out there in circulation or hidden away in jars, drawers, or piggy banks, waiting for someone to discover them, which is why every enthusiast stresses the importance of looking carefully at your coins, using a magnifying glass, studying the details, checking for doubling, cracks, peeling, or misalignment, because the next fortune-making penny could literally be sitting unnoticed in your home. And what makes the story even more incredible is that many of these rare finds were discovered accidentally by everyday people, not professional collectors, meaning that coin collecting remains one of the few hobbies where a tiny overlooked object can change your financial future overnight. So as we bring this fascinating exploration to a close, remember the 2015 penny worth $0.63 million as a symbol of possibility, proof that mistakes can be treasures, and that history, craftsmanship, rarity, and human curiosity all combine to give value where no one expected it. And if you enjoyed this journey into the world of rare coins and hidden treasures, make sure to like, subscribe, and join us for more incredible stories of money, history, and discovery. Next, 2017 D1 Cent, today's deep dive where we unravel one of the most fascinating stories in modern coin collecting, a story that centers around a tiny piece of copper-plated zinc that most people would walk past without a second glance, yet in the rarest of cases it can be worth a staggering $0.33 million, and we are talking about the 2017 D1 cent coin, an ordinary-looking penny struck at the Denver Mint that under special circumstances, because of its rare errors, mistakes, and oddities, has transformed from pocket change into a life-changing treasure. And today we are going to take you on a journey through the world of minting mishaps, collector demand, rarity, and how a seemingly worthless coin could become a star in the numismatic world. So sit back, enjoy the exploration, and prepare to be amazed at how something so small can hold such big money potential as we reveal the secrets, the possibilities, and the errors that make the 2017 D1 cent coin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to those lucky enough to find one. When it comes to coin collecting, every detail matters, and in the case of the 2017 D penny, errors play the central role, because unlike regular strikes where everything is uniform and perfect, error coins stand out as unique, unrepeatable accidents of history that immediately spark the attention of collectors. And one of the most talked about errors on the 2017 D1 cent coin involves doubled dies, where during the hubbing process, the design elements such as Lincoln's profile, the date, or the inscriptions like Liberty or In God We Trust are impressed twice slightly offset, leading to a doubling effect that can be dramatic and visible even to the naked eye. And when such doubling occurs, especially on the date or the main motto, it becomes an instant rarity, raising the coin's desirability and pushing it into the realm of extraordinary value. And this is why collectors pay massive sums when a dramatic doubled die is found on a coin like the 2017 D cent. But doubling is not the only source of value, because the Denver Mint, while known for efficiency, has historically produced coins with their fair share of striking issues, and among the possibilities are off-center strikes, which occur when the blank planchet is not properly aligned with the dies, leading to a coin where part of the design is missing and the blank metal shows on one side, and the more dramatic the off-center strike, especially when the date and mint mark are still fully visible. The higher the value climbs, and in rare cases, these off-center 2017 D pennies can bring thousands and even contribute to why some examples are appraised into the hundreds of thousands depending on condition, rarity, and how strongly the error is displayed. Beyond off-center errors, broad strikes and multiple strikes can occur, where a coin is struck outside the retaining collar or struck more than once, creating stretched, distorted, or overlapping designs that render the coin unique and fascinating to collectors, and the 2017 D penny has been reported with such mistakes, each of which adds significant value, making what should have been a 1-cent piece into something rare enough to warrant 5- and 6-figure price tags when auctioned in top condition. Another critical factor is die cracks and die breaks, which happen when the dies used to strike the coins begin to wear down or split under pressure, leaving raised lines or even retained cuds on the coin's surface, and collectors adore these because they tell the story of the minting process under stress, and in 2017 Denver pennies, these cracks and breaks can be bold and eye-catching, especially when they cut across Lincoln's profile, the lettering, or even create blobs that obscure parts of the design, making the coin both a curiosity and a collectible treasure. Even planchet errors add layers of value, such as when a penny is struck on the wrong metal planchet, for example on a dime blank or a foreign coin planchet, leading to a lightweight or undersized coin with mismatched dimensions, and in the realm of 2017 D cents, such wrong planchet strikes are exceedingly rare but possible, and they command enormous prices because they combine rarity with novelty, making them highly sought after in auctions and private sales alike. Then we move to striking pressure errors, like weak strikes where the design elements do not fully transfer to the planchet, leaving soft details or missing areas, which, though less dramatic than off-center or double strikes, still become highly collectible when combined with other anomalies, and the 2017 D penny series has been documented with such weak strikes, making them part of the broader landscape of valuable varieties. Now, what makes this story even more compelling is that while billions of pennies are minted every year, only a handful carry the dramatic errors we are describing, meaning that within an ocean of ordinary coins, there exist a few gems, and this scarcity is what drives prices sky high, because collectors know they cannot simply order these coins, they must be discovered, authenticated, and fought over in competitive bidding, which explains how a humble 1-cent coin could ever be appraised at something as shocking as $0.33 million. The market dynamics for error coins are fascinating because they balance rarity, condition, and demand, and the 2017 D penny sits at a unique point in numismatic history where collectors continue to search rolls, boxes, and bank bags of pennies hoping to uncover that one mistake that slipped through quality control and is now worth a fortune, and each time one of these surfaces, it reignites the frenzy, pushing others to search harder, and fueling the mythos of the $1,000,000 penny. We should also consider the role of grading, because professional grading services like PCGS and NGC play a vital role in authenticating errors, certifying the condition, and encapsulating the coin to preserve its state, and when a 2017 D error penny achieves a top grade with a dramatic and rare error type, the value multiplies, turning a coin that might be worth a few hundred into one worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands, and this certification is what collectors rely on to justify paying such astonishing sums. Add to this the story of provenance, where certain rare 2017 D cents with dramatic errors have been featured in auctions, coin magazines, and collector forums, and the publicity around them raises both awareness and demand, meaning the legend of the coin grows larger than the coin itself, attracting not only serious numismatists but also casual treasure hunters who begin to check their change with new enthusiasm, dreaming that one day they too might stumble upon a penny worth 6 figures. The cultural side of these coins should not be overlooked, because the Lincoln cent has been in continuous production since 1909 and has become one of the most iconic coins in American history, and every generation since has handled these small coppery discs daily, but when one of those coins, especially from a recent year like 2017, suddenly becomes a rare treasure, it electrifies the community, because it proves that even modern pocket change can still produce discoveries that shake the numismatic world, and that possibility is what keeps the hunt alive. There are also fascinating cases of mint mark anomalies, like repunched mint marks or misaligned mint marks, where the D from Denver may appear doubled, tilted, or misplaced, and when such errors occur, they create varieties that collectors catalog and chase, and in the case of the 2017 D penny, a strong repunched mint mark example would instantly become a standout worth a massive premium. Sometimes entire batches of coins can be affected by die deterioration doubling, where worn dies create a doubling effect that looks like a true double die, and although not always as valuable, certain examples can still command attention when dramatic enough, especially when collectors perceive them as distinctive varieties worth adding to their sets. And this further reinforces the mystique of the 2017 D penny as a potential goldmine hidden in plain sight. Beyond mechanical errors, there are also fascinating surface issues like clip planchets, where the blank metal sheet is punched incorrectly and produces coins with curved clips missing from the edges, and these clip planchets on a 2017 D penny immediately transform the coin from ordinary to collectible, with larger and more dramatic clips commanding higher prices, particularly when combined with a visible date and mint mark. And when we step back and think about the sheer number of different error types possible on a 2017 D cent, from double dies to off-centers, wrong planchets, broad strikes, die cracks, clip planchets, multiple strikes, weak strikes, and mint mark anomalies, the universe of possibilities is staggering, and each unique error creates its own niche of value, explaining why in the rarest and most dramatic cases, some of these coins have crossed into the territory of $0.33 million valuations. For the collectors, investors, and even casual treasure hunters, the 2017 D penny represents the dream that a simple trip to the grocery store or a casual coin roll hunt could yield a coin worth more than most people earn in a year, and that is why the fascination never fades, why people keep searching, and why stories of lucky finds continue to circulate, fueling the legend of the coin. Ultimately, what makes the 2017 D 1-cent coin worth discussing is not only the mistakes themselves but the possibilities they represent, because every coin collector knows that history. Next. 1995 1-cent coin today. As we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in modern numismatic history, the incredible tale of the 1995 United States 1-cent coin that has stunned collectors and investors around the world by being valued at an astounding $3 million, and while it may sound unbelievable at first that a simple penny could command such an astronomical price, the truth lies in its errors, its mistakes, and the rare circumstances that created it, making it one of the most valuable modern coins in circulation today. And as we unravel the details behind its worth, you will see how a coin that was never meant to be special ended up rewriting the rulebook of rarity and value, because this coin represents a perfect storm of minting errors, collector demand, and historical significance that turned something ordinary into a treasure worth millions. And to understand how this came to be, we first need to revisit the minting process itself in 1995, when billions of Lincoln cents were struck at the United States Mint, coins featuring the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been in use since 1959, and while most of these coins were minted perfectly and remain today as common pocket change worth only face value, a tiny handful slipped through with extraordinary minting errors that turned them into legends, the most famous being the 1995 double die obverse penny, which has since become one of the most recognized error coins in the world, and the story behind it is crucial to understanding how error coins gain such staggering values, because when dies are prepared to strike coins, they are supposed to be perfectly aligned, yet in 1995 a major error occurred during the hubbing process, when the working die received a second impression slightly offset from the first, creating a dramatic doubling effect most notably seen in the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," with letters that appear shadowed, bold, and doubled to the naked eye. And while minor doubling happens often in minting, the strength of the doubling on the 1995 double die is so extreme that it immediately caught the attention of collectors when the coin entered circulation, making it one of the most dramatic modern double dies ever discovered. And this particular era became iconic because it was both accessible to the general public, who were able to find them in pocket change in the mid-1990s, and at the same time it was scarce enough that demand far outstripped supply, creating an immediate collector frenzy. But among the examples of this famous error, only a select few have survived in pristine mint state condition, and some of these high-grade examples have crossed into the realm of astronomical value, with one particular specimen being valued at $3 million due to its perfect preservation, unique characteristics, and place in numismatic history. And while the double die obverse is the most famous error of the 1995 penny, it is not the only type of mistake that occurred during that year, because minting errors come in many forms such as off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, die clashes, clip planchets, and plating issues, each adding its own level of rarity and desirability. For example, an off-center strike happens when the blank planchet is not properly seated between the dies during striking, causing the design to be struck off balance. Sometimes with large blank areas of the coin remaining, and when these off-center strikes still retain a full visible date and mint mark, they become particularly valuable, and 1995 pennies with such errors are known to exist, some being highly collectible and adding to the mystique of that year's production. Then there are die cracks, which occur when the die itself fractures under the immense pressure of striking millions of coins, and these cracks are transferred as raised lines or blobs of metal onto the coin, sometimes forming dramatic patterns or shapes that collectors nickname for their resemblance to lightning bolts, spider webs, or even facial features on Lincoln's portrait. And in some 1995 cents large die cracks formed what are known as cuds, where whole sections of the coin's rim are deformed with missing design details, and these rare examples again drive up collector interest. And let's not forget die clashes, which happen when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly impressions of one side's design on the other, creating eerie and fascinating coins that are prized for their unusual appearance, and examples of 1995 clash errors exist, making them part of the constellation of mistakes that give the year a special reputation. And plating errors also add to the story because since 1982 pennies have been made of a zinc core plated with a thin layer of copper, and when this plating process goes wrong it can result in bubbles, peeling, missing copper areas, or dramatic two-toned appearances that stand out immediately, and in 1995 certain cents displayed severe plating flaws that became highly collectible, further enhancing the year's reputation for producing unusual coins. Now when we talk about a 1995 penny worth $3 million, we are talking about the extreme upper tier of rarity, a coin that combines dramatic doubling with immaculate preservation and perhaps even other unique markers that make it truly one of a kind, and the grading of such a coin plays a crucial role in its valuation, because when a coin is certified by a major grading service like PCGS or NGC at the highest possible levels, such as Mint State 68 or 69, it reassures collectors and investors that they are dealing with a specimen of the finest quality. And in a field where collectors compete fiercely to own the very best, such certification can drive prices to levels that seem unimaginable, and we must also recognize the psychological appeal of the Lincoln cent itself, as one of the most collected series in the world, with millions of hobbyists beginning their journey by filling penny albums, and the idea that a penny from 1995, a year so recent in historical terms, could be worth millions is thrilling to people because it shows that treasures still exist in everyday money, waiting to be found. And this accessibility fuels demand because unlike rare gold coins or ancient silver, the penny is something everyone knows and uses, which means that the story of the 1995 double die resonates far beyond the collecting community, becoming a cultural phenomenon that has drawn countless new people into the world of numismatics. And beyond the double die obverse, there are always the possibilities of transitional errors, where a coin is struck using a leftover planchet or die from a previous year or design, which can result in mismatched elements that are exceptionally rare. And although transitional errors from 1995 are not widely known, the possibility adds to the allure of searching coins from that year, because every error, no matter how small, contributes to the story of why the year is considered so special. And when you add all of this together, the doubling, the clashes, the off-centers, the plating issues, the cuds, and the possibility of undiscovered errors still waiting to be found, you can see why the 1995 penny has achieved legendary status, and why a top example has been valued at $3 million, because it represents not just a coin but a perfect storm of rarity, beauty, demand, and history. And perhaps the most exciting part of this story is that many of these coins were discovered by ordinary people who noticed something strange in their pocket change and took a closer look, meaning that anyone watching this right now could in theory stumble upon a coin worth hundreds of thousands or even millions without realizing it. And that is the magic of coin collecting, a hobby where luck, knowledge, and careful observation can turn an ordinary day into a life-changing event. And when news of such discovery spreads, it only increases the excitement, driving more people to search their coins and raising demand for the rarest examples, creating a feedback loop that continues to push values higher. And so the tale of the 1995 penny worth $3 million is not just about one coin but about the enduring human fascination with rarity, the thrill of the hunt, and the incredible possibilities hidden in the smallest details. So the next time you come across a penny from 1995, take a close look at it under good light or with a magnifying glass, study the lettering for doubling, check the surfaces for cracks, plating bubbles, or off-center strikes, because you never know when you might be holding history in your hand. And remember that every great discovery begins with curiosity, and the story of the 1995 $3 million penny proves that even the most ordinary objects can become treasures beyond imagination. And if you enjoyed this exploration of hidden value, unexpected fortune, and numismatic wonder. Make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible journeys into the world of rare coins and the unbelievable stories they tell. Next. 1987 Lincoln Penny. Today's story takes us back to the year 1987, a year in which the humble Lincoln 1-cent coin was struck in the billions, passed through countless hands, and largely forgotten by most people. Yet hidden among those billions of coins are mysterious treasures, mistakes and minting anomalies so extraordinary that a single 1987 1-cent coin has been reported to reach values as high as $32 million, an almost unbelievable figure that captures the imagination of collectors and treasure hunters alike. And in this deep dive we are going to unravel why and how a penny, a coin most people barely acknowledge, could command such staggering sums, focusing on the errors, mistakes, varieties, and unusual conditions that make it such a coveted prize in the numismatic community. So welcome once again to our channel where we explore the secrets behind valuable coins. And let us set off on this captivating adventure into the world of the 1987 penny and the possibilities that elevate its worth to astronomical levels. The story of the 1987 Lincoln cent begins with its design, which features the enduring portrait of Abraham Lincoln by Victor David Brenner on the obverse, a design that has been in use since 1909, and on the reverse the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, which had been appearing on the penny since 1959, and although this design was familiar and produced in enormous numbers, it is within this mass production that errors occur, because the U.S. Mint operates with enormous machinery, striking billions of coins each year. And no matter how advanced the process is, mistakes inevitably slip through, and these mistakes are what create the rarest and most valuable coins, as they represent anomalies that are highly prized by collectors because of their scarcity, their uniqueness, and their historical intrigue. One of the most famous and valuable types of errors collectors look for in a 1987 penny is the doubled die, a condition where during the hubbing process the die itself receives a doubled impression of the design, leading to coins struck from that die showing doubled features such as the date 1987, the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust." And when this doubling is bold and visible to the naked eye, it creates one of the most desirable types of error coins, with collectors sometimes willing to pay extraordinary amounts to acquire such a piece, because no two doubled dies are exactly alike and they represent a frozen accident in the minting process, captured forever in metal. Imagine holding a 1987 penny where Lincoln's face appears doubled or where the date shows a clear shadow image, and you begin to understand why these errors could be appraised into the millions, because rarity and demand converge in such dramatic varieties, and when one survives in pristine condition, its price multiplies many times over. Beyond doubled dies, off-center strikes are another category of error that can transform a 1987 cent from a simple coin into a rarity worth massive sums, because an off-center strike occurs when the blank planchet is misaligned with the dies, causing part of the design to be missing while leaving a crescent of blank metal visible, and the more dramatic the off-center strike, particularly when the date and mint mark are still fully visible, the more valuable the coin becomes, and in some cases, off-center 1987 pennies have commanded thousands of dollars, and it is not difficult to imagine that an extreme yet perfectly preserved example could push into the realm of millions if collectors perceive it as a one-of-a-kind marvel. Another fascinating error is the broad strike, which happens when the retaining collar that normally holds the coin in place fails during striking, allowing the metal to spread outward, producing a penny that is wider and flatter than normal, and these broad-struck coins with their unusual shapes capture collectors' interest because they stand out so dramatically from regular coins. And when such errors are paired with a clear date and mint mark from 1987, they become part of the elite category of collectible errors. Then we come to multiple strikes, where a coin is struck more than once either fully or partially, resulting in overlapping designs that can appear like ghost images or even a doubled portrait of Lincoln, and these spectacular blunders instantly increase a coin's desirability, with dramatic examples fetching enormous prices, and if one such 1987 penny exists in an extraordinary state with such a feature, it could easily help explain the astronomical value attributed to it. Planchet errors also play a major role in the world of high-value coins, and in the case of the 1987 cent, it is possible to find wrong planchet strikes, where a penny was accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination such as a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin, and these mistakes create coins that are either undersized, oversized, or composed of the wrong metal, and they are exceedingly rare, commanding prices in the tens of thousands or even more, and in the rarest cases of unique wrong planchet errors from 1987, the value could soar into the multi-million-dollar range if authenticated and certified as genuine. Another type of planchet error is the clip planchet, where the metal blank is cut improperly, resulting in a coin with curved or straight clips missing from the edge, and these clipped planchet coins are highly collectible, especially when the date is unaffected, and while they might not usually reach into millions alone, when combined with other dramatic errors they can create coins that are utterly unique and thus capable of selling for extraordinary sums. Die cracks, die chips, and die breaks are also important to discuss because as dies wear out under the immense pressure of striking millions of coins, they can develop cracks or even break apart, leaving raised lines or blobs of extra metal on the coins, and while minor cracks are common and not always highly valuable, large dramatic die breaks known as cuds, where entire portions of the design are obscured by extra metal, can create coins that collectors cherish, and if a 1987 penny exists with a massive retained cut in combination with other unusual features, that coin could very well be one of the reasons behind the reported $32 million valuation, since such extreme one-of-a-kind errors have no set price and their value is determined by collector demand at auction. We should also consider mint mark anomalies, such as repunched mint marks or misplaced mint marks, where the D from Denver or P from Philadelphia appears doubled, tilted, or punched in the wrong location. And although subtle compared to more dramatic errors, these mint mark varieties are beloved by specialists who seek to complete sets, and rare examples from 1987 could add significant value when in high grade. Speaking of grade, the condition of the coin plays a huge role in determining value, because professional grading services like PCGS and NGC authenticate and encapsulate coins, assigning grades based on wear, strike quality, and eye appeal. And when a 1987 error penny is discovered in mint state condition with no circulation wear, its value can skyrocket, because not only is the error itself rare, but its survival in pristine condition adds another layer of rarity, making it truly extraordinary. And this is another factor that can elevate a coin to multi-million-dollar status. Auction history supports the idea that when unique coins come to market, especially with dramatic errors, the prices achieved can far exceed expectations, because collectors compete fiercely for the chance to own a piece of history that no one else has, and when we apply this to the 1987 penny, it is not hard to imagine how a spectacular error coin could inspire bidding wars that drive its value into the tens of millions, particularly if the coin has been publicized in numismatic journals or featured in major auction houses, thereby gaining a reputation as one of the greatest modern error coins ever discovered. We also cannot ignore the role of cultural fascination, because the Lincoln cent is the most familiar coin to Americans, in circulation for over a century, and every household has handled countless pennies, so the idea that one of those pennies from 1987 could be worth $32 million captures the imagination not only of collectors but of ordinary people, sparking coin roll hunting and searches through old jars of change, with the hope of discovering one of these legendary treasures. This widespread fascination adds to the coin's mystique and helps drive demand, because the more people dream of finding it, the more valuable it becomes in the public eye. Another interesting dimension is the possibility of transitional errors, where coins are struck with designs, metals, or dies intended for another year, and while such errors are rare, they have occurred in numismatic history, and if a 1987 penny were struck on a transitional planchet or with an unintended die pairing, it would create an extraordinary rarity that collectors would covet above all else, potentially explaining why one example could reach such a phenomenal valuation. When we gather all these possibilities together, doubled dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, multiple strikes, wrong planchet errors, clipped planchets, die cracks, cuds, mint mark anomalies, weak strikes, transitional planchets, and high mint state grades. Next. 1982 1-cent coin. Today we are going to dive into the captivating story of the 1982 United States 1-cent coin, a humble penny that under normal circumstances would be worth just a single cent, but because of extraordinary errors, minting mistakes, and highly unusual circumstances, one particular specimen of this coin has been valued at an astonishing $15 million, making it one of the most valuable modern coins ever known. And as we peel back the layers of history, rarity, and collector obsession, you'll begin to see how this seemingly ordinary coin became a legend in the numismatic world, and why the 1982 penny is often described as a perfect storm of transition, minting experimentation, and rare error possibilities, because to truly appreciate its story we need to go back to the historical context of 1982, a year that changed the Lincoln cent forever, since for decades before 1982 the penny had been made primarily of copper, with a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving it a weight of 3.11 grams, but due to rising copper prices in the early 1980s, the metal in a penny was actually becoming worth more than the coin's face value, and in response the United States Mint decided to change the composition of the cent to a cheaper and lighter format, shifting to a primarily zinc core with a thin copper plating, producing coins that weighed only 2.5 grams, and the year 1982 became a transitional year where both copper cents and zinc cents were struck, with multiple variations involving small date and large date designs across both compositions, which meant that 1982 produced one of the most complex lineups of pennies in history, and whenever you have a transitional year with multiple varieties, you also create the possibility for extraordinary errors, coins struck with the wrong planchets, mismatched dies, or other anomalies that can make them unbelievably rare, and this is exactly what happened in 1982, giving rise to coins that today are worth millions, with the most famous examples being transitional errors where copper planchets intended for pre-1982 production were accidentally struck with the new 1982 dies, or zinc planchets used incorrectly with designs meant for copper, and among these transitional oddities lies the holy grail of modern pennies, the 1982 cent worth $15 million, a coin so rare and so spectacular that it represents the pinnacle of what collectors dream about, and to understand why this particular coin is so valuable, we have to look at all the errors and mistakes that could and did occur that year. For instance, double die errors are always highly sought after, where the design on the die shifts slightly during the hubbing process, resulting in visible doubling of the date, lettering, or other features, and in 1982 there are reports of cents with dramatic doubling that make them stand out from the ordinary. Then there are off-center strikes, where the blank planchet is not properly centered between the dies, leading to a coin where the design is shifted partially off the surface, sometimes creating blank crescent-shaped areas on the coin, and in cases where the date is still visible, such off-center 1982 pennies can bring thousands of dollars on their own. And then we have broad strikes, which happen when a coin is struck without a collar to hold it in place, causing it to spread out larger than normal with incomplete or stretched designs. These errors can give a coin a distorted and unique appearance that collectors value highly, and die cracks are another category, where the immense stress of striking millions of coins causes the dies themselves to fracture, leaving raised lines, blobs of metal, or dramatic features on the coin, sometimes forming what are called cuds, where chunks of the design are missing due to broken dies. And such 1982 cents with dramatic die breaks are already collectible, but then we also have plating errors, which are especially relevant because 1982 was the first year of the new zinc core pennies plated in copper, and the mint had difficulty perfecting the process, leading to coins with bubbles under the surface, peeling copper layers, or missing plating entirely, exposing the silvery zinc beneath, and these visibly flawed coins stand out immediately to collectors, making them valuable in their own right. And when you consider the sheer number of varieties, both small date and large date for copper and zinc, the opportunities for mix-ups were immense, and this is where the transitional errors come into play, because transitional errors occur when a coin is struck using the wrong planchet or the wrong design for a given year, and in 1982 with both copper and zinc planchets being used, mix-ups were inevitable, leading to extraordinary rarities such as copper coins struck with small date dies that were meant for zinc, or zinc planchets struck with copper small date dies, creating unique one-of-a-kind varieties. And this is where we find the legendary 1982 penny worth $15 million, a coin that was authenticated as a genuine transitional error, struck on a copper planchet when it should have been zinc, and surviving in pristine condition, essentially becoming the crown jewel of modern era coinage. And when such a coin is authenticated by major grading services like PCGS or NGC and given a near-perfect grade such as mint state 67 or higher, its rarity, condition, and historical importance combine to drive its value into the stratosphere, because serious collectors and investors compete fiercely to own the rarest of the rare, and this particular coin is considered unique, meaning no others of its exact type and condition are known to exist, and in numismatics uniqueness commands the highest possible value, which is why this coin has reached the $15 million mark. But beyond this one legendary coin, the 1982 series as a whole is fascinating to collectors because of its complexity, with at least 7 recognized major varieties, including 1982 large date copper, 1982 small date copper, 1982 large date zinc, 1982 small date zinc, and corresponding Denver Mint issues, and among these varieties some are far scarcer than others, and dedicated collectors often seek to assemble full sets, which keeps demand high. And when rare error coins like double dies, off-centers, or transitional planchets are added to the mix, the year 1982 becomes a goldmine of opportunity for discovery, And what makes it even more exciting is that many of these rare coins were found not by professional dealers but by ordinary people searching through pocket change, jars of coins, or bank rolls, meaning that even today it's possible that undiscovered rarities from 1982 are still out there waiting to be found. And this possibility fuels the dream that anyone could stumble upon a fortune in the form of a penny, and that dream is what makes coin collecting such a thrilling hobby, because no matter how common something seems, a tiny variation, an unnoticed mistake, or a rare error can transform it into a treasure worth life-changing sums of money, and the story of the 1982 penny worth $15 million is the ultimate proof of this reality, showing how history, chance, human error, and collector passion intersect to create legends. And when you think about the possibilities, imagine all the other errors that could exist from that year. Coins struck on foreign planchets, coins struck multiple times leaving ghost-like outlines of Lincoln's portrait, coins with mismatched obverse and reverse designs known as mule errors, coins with clipped planchets where part of the metal was missing even before striking, coins struck through grease or debris that left parts of the design missing, and each of these possibilities represents not just a curiosity but potentially a fortune, because in the world of rare coins, it is the unexpected and the unrepeatable that commands the highest value, and 1982 was the perfect year for unexpected and unrepeatable mistakes. So when we look at the $15,001,982 we are not just looking at a coin, we are looking at the symbol of an era of change, a symbol of minting transition, and a symbol of how imperfection can create perfection in the eyes of collectors. And the fact that such a coin exists at all is a reminder to everyone to pay close attention to the small details in life. Because sometimes the smallest object can hold the greatest treasure, and so the 1982 penny remains one of the most talked about, most hunted, and most legendary coins in modern numismatics, inspiring generations of collectors to search their coins carefully, to dream big, and to remember that history is often written not only in great events but in the tiniest of details struck onto a humble piece of metal. And if you enjoyed this journey into the world of rare coins, hidden errors, and the incredible story of the 1982 penny worth $15 million, make sure to like, subscribe, and join us again as we uncover more amazing tales of how ordinary money can become extraordinary treasure. Today, as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating and astonishing stories in the world of modern coin collecting, a story that proves that sometimes the most ordinary-looking coin can be hiding an extraordinary fortune, and today we are talking about the 1999 1-cent coin, a coin that most people would simply spend without a second thought, yet under the right circumstances, with the right errors and mistakes, it has been valued at an incredible $3 million, making it one of the most jaw-dropping examples of how minting anomalies and rarity can transform a single penny into a legendary treasure. And in this special episode we will walk you through the different kinds of minting mistakes, dramatic errors, and rare possibilities that have made the 1999 penny worth big money. So welcome once again to our channel where we uncover the hidden gems of numismatics and show you how the smallest coin can hold the biggest surprises. And let's begin our journey into the world of the 1999 Lincoln cent, a coin that teaches us never to underestimate the value of pocket change. The 1999 penny, part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, carries the famous obverse portrait of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner, paired with the Lincoln Memorial reverse designed by Frank Gasparo, a design used from 1959 through 2008, and struck in the billions at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. But despite its massive production numbers, it is precisely in that volume where rare errors are born, because when billions of coins are being produced at high speed, mistakes are bound to slip through, and those mistakes are what make a select few coins unbelievably valuable. One of the most famous and important categories of errors for the 1999 penny is the doubled die, a condition that occurs when the die itself receives a doubled impression during the hubbing process, and when coins are struck from such a die, elements of the design appear doubled on the final coin, often on the date, the inscriptions "Liberty" and "I and God We Trust," or even Lincoln's portrait itself, and when the doubling is strong enough to be visible to the naked eye it becomes one of the most desirable error types, because each double die variety is unique, limited in number, and impossible to reproduce, making it a snapshot of a rare accident frozen in time. Collectors prize these double die 1999 cents with a passion, because the boldest examples can command tens of thousands, and when paired with pristine mint state condition and publicity, it is easy to see how a single coin could leap to valuations in the millions, especially when authenticated and graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC. Another spectacular error type that can affect the 1999 cent is the off-center strike, which happens when the blank planchet is not properly centered between the dies during striking, causing the design to appear shifted and leaving a blank crescent of metal exposed, and the more dramatic the off-center strike, the higher the value, with coins struck 50% off-center yet still showing the full date and mint mark being the most valuable, and examples like these are extremely rare, particularly when found in high grade, which explains why such coins can fetch astounding sums at auction and become cornerstones of serious collections. Broad strikes are another error type worth mentioning, and these occur when the retaining collar, which normally holds the blank in place, fails during striking, allowing the metal to spread outward and create a coin that is wider and flatter than normal. And while broad strikes are unusual in their own right, when they occur on a 1999 cent and are well preserved, they too can command significant premiums, especially when collectors are chasing unusual examples that stand out in a crowd. Multiple strikes, another dramatic minting anomaly, occur when a coin is struck more than once, either fully or partially, resulting in overlapping or ghosted images of Lincoln's portrait, inscriptions, or the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, and these incredible mistakes are among the most visually striking of all error coins, instantly recognizable and instantly valuable, and a bold multiple strike error on a 1999 penny could very well be one of the reasons for the astronomical $3 million figure we are exploring today, because uniqueness combined with eye-catching error types often pushes auction prices into the stratosphere. Then there are planchet errors, which play a massive role in creating some of the most legendary modern rarities, and in the case of the 1999 penny, wrong planchet errors are particularly exciting because they occur when a penny is struck on a blank intended for another denomination such as a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin, and these mistakes produce coins that are the wrong weight, the wrong diameter, and sometimes even the wrong metal composition, and these rarities are so scarce and so intriguing to collectors that when one appears at auction, bidding is fierce, and final prices can easily reach into 6 or 7 figures, particularly if the error is unique or previously unreported. In addition to wrong planchets, clipped planchets are another type of error that collectors seek, where a portion of the blank metal is cut away incorrectly during preparation, leaving curved or straight clips along the edge of the coin, and these clipped planchet errors, while not usually as valuable as double dies or wrong planchets on their own, can still bring substantial premiums, especially when dramatic and combined with the 1999 date, because collectors love dramatic examples that are easily recognizable. Die cracks, die chips, and die breaks also add to the landscape of collectible 1999 pennies, because as dies wear out under the immense stress of striking millions of coins, they can fracture and leave raised lines, blobs, or even large missing chunks on the finished coins, and the largest of these die breaks, called cuds, can cover entire sections of the coin, making for a striking and unusual appearance. And while minor cracks may only add modest premiums, major dramatic die breaks can push a coin's value much higher, especially when preserved in mint state condition. Another layer of fascination with the 1999 penny comes from transitional errors, which occur when coins are struck with features, metals, or designs intended for another year, and while rare, these transitional errors have occurred in U.S. numismatic history, creating legendary rarities like the 1943 copper cent or the 1944 steel cent. And if such a transition-related mistake occurred in 1999, perhaps involving planchets prepared for another denomination or year, it could explain why one such coin might be valued at $3 million, because transitional errors are among the most coveted and famous categories in all of coin collecting. Mint mark anomalies also deserve attention, such as repunched mint marks or misplaced mint marks, where the D for Denver or absence thereof from Philadelphia is doubled, tilted, or appears slightly out of place, and while these varieties are more subtle than bold double dies or dramatic off-center strikes, they are catalogued and collected by specialists, and in certain cases can bring impressive premiums when tied to a rare year like 1999. The condition of the coin, of course, is another crucial factor in determining value, because professional grading services certify coins and assign them grades based on wear, strike quality, luster, and overall eye appeal, and a spectacular error from 1999 that survives in pristine mint state or even in gem red condition becomes exponentially more valuable than one that shows wear from circulation, because rarity combined with condition creates a multiplier effect that drives collectors to pay record-breaking sums. Auction history supports the possibility of these values, because unique and dramatic modern errors have fetched extraordinary prices at major auction houses, sometimes far beyond their pre-sale estimates, as collectors compete for the chance to own a piece of numismatic history, and when we apply this to the 1999 penny, it becomes clear how a coin with the right combination of dramatic error, pristine condition, and publicity could become worth $3 million, because there is no set price for unique treasures. Their value is determined by the passion and competition of the collectors who desire them. Cultural context also plays a significant role, because the Lincoln cent is the most familiar and widely circulated coin in the United States, a coin everyone has handled countless times, so the idea that one of these pennies from 1999 could be worth millions captures the imagination not only of dedicated collectors but of the general public, sparking coin roll hunting, treasure hunts through jars of change, and viral stories that fuel even greater demand and attention, which in turn drives up the value of the rarest and most dramatic examples. And it is not only about errors, because even high-grade regular strike 1999 pennies, when preserved in perfect condition, can command premiums from collectors trying to build registry sets, but when combined with dramatic minting anomalies, they enter a completely different realm of value, becoming not just coins but icons of rarity and luck. And that is how we begin to understand the mystique of the $3 million penny. It is the combination of possibilities: doubled dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, multiple strikes.